it's Saturday night, Sunday morning-ish. It's 1:30 a.m. Sam, is it 1:30?
Quarter past.
So it's 1:15. We're about to head over to the gym for our Saturday evening ritual of training and filming. We are doing a glute workout. My eyes are so puffy because I'm so tired. But we need to get this done and I need to train. So we're going to do a glute workout. I'm going to do another commentary video for you because that you really enjoyed. So I'm going to talk about glute activation, why some of you maybe do glute exercises and not necessarily feel it in your glutes, or you don't really get the DOMs. So I'm going to put that out and hopefully you can all build those booties but more effectively now. If you like this video, make sure you give it a thumbs up, comment, subscribe, and I'll see you in the gym.
I'm not training my glutes.
So, in simple terms, glute activation is basically just waking up the glutes. And many of you will be wondering why your glutes are underdeveloped despite training them, or even wondering why you don't feel the burn like you do when you train your other muscles. So, if you have a sedentary office job where you're basically just sat on your bum all day, it can actually lead to weak glutes, tight hamstrings, and also tight hip flexors. The saying goes, use it or lose it, and this is definitely the case for our butt. One of the most common problems that I see is overshadowed glutes, and this is where your glutes can fire correctly, but they're not as strong as your other lower body muscles. So your other muscles, such as your quads, they take over when your glutes should actually be contracting. So glute bridges are one of my favorite glute activation exercises, and here I'm showing what most people do when it comes to performing these, which can actually take away from the glutes. For optimal glute activation, you want to think about flexing the knee as much as possible, and this will shorten your hamstrings. Shortening the hamstrings means that during the movement, we won't be able to recruit them as much, and therefore the glutes will produce predominantly all of the hip extension torque. So using resistance bands are a great way to add extra resistance to these movements, and research shows that the more distal the band is situated during sumo walks or monster walks, the more glute activation will be recorded. So the best place to use this band during these movements is actually around the feet. This is because it incorporates not only the abduction that you get around your knee or your ankle, but external rotation as well, which fires up the glute max and med even more than the ankle or knee. So one of the most common things I hear is that squats are all you need to do to build your glutes, and so much research shows this is not true. Squats are a great compound movement, don't get me wrong, but research shows that kneeling squats produce more glute activation than any other variation of squat. But that being said, I wouldn't recommend switching up from normal squats just to do kneeling squats, as it can be an awkward movement pattern to do. Personally, I would recommend keeping normal squats in your routine as they're a great compound movement, but adding in hip thrusts to your glute days, which have been shown to have an even greater EMG glute activation than kneeling squats or normal squats. So the thing to remember is that squats, deadlifts, lunges, good mornings, etc., they're all great compound movements to work our lower bodies, but that doesn't mean that they are the most effective for developing your booty. I believe that glute hypertrophy, it can't be maximized by one exercise alone, so make sure you switch up your routine. Don't be afraid of glute isolation work, because I see a lot of training focus put around vertical based hip extension exercises such as squats, but rather than combination of vertical and horizontal extension work, which will work the glutes better, such as adding in hip thrusts and glute bridges. You can do glute activation prior to a workout or even in between sets as an active rest if you don't necessarily want to do it prior. So reverse hyperextensions are another one of my favorites, and I like to add in the single leg hypers with bands as you saw earlier in the video. So controlling the concentric and eccentric phase, really slowing it down, will really help to give you an insane glute burn, and it's definitely a must in my glute routine. So probably my favorite glute exercise to build the glutes once I've activated them is hip thrusts. You want to basically focus on pushing through your heels to encourage muscle activation in the glutes and your hamstrings. Here I'm overcompensating so you can see what I mean, because if you push through your toes, you're basically going to be recruiting too much of your quads. So I'm showing also what is a common form that I see for glute thrusts, and people will start with their knees too far away from the buttocks, which recruits more of the hamstrings, and generally, yeah, you can push more weight, but you're not focusing enough on the glutes. You want to focus on ensuring that the shins are vertical and perpendicular to the ground during that top lockout position. Too close, you'll recruit the quads. Too far away, you're recruiting too much of the hamstring, as you can see here. So next, just ensure your knees are wide enough apart, which this increases gluteal activation. And finally, you just want to make sure that you're concentrating on a slight posterior pelvic tilt towards the top of the movement. And this basically just helps to reduce recruitment of the erectors, but also preventing lumbar hyperextension, which is something we don't want to get into. So I really hope you enjoyed the video. I hope you've learned some tips for firing up your glutes prior to training, and I will see you in the next one.